Hey folks, this is Guillermo Fuentes, and welcome back to another level design video. Today, we're going to look at how Naughty Dog builds intensity through level design in The Last of Us Part 2. Things like high and low cover, occluded movement, negative and positive space, and how every part of the environment is not just there to look good, but to serve a gameplay purpose. I will be talking about an encounter in the Hillcrest level from Chapter 3, Seattle Day 2, which I really enjoyed, and it's one of my favorites in the whole game, so I had to break it down. Between the enemy patrol routes, the verticality inside the houses, and the way the dogs force you to keep moving, this is the kind of level that constantly challenges the player to think on the fly. This is actually the first video in a new series where I'll be breaking down the level design of The Last of Us Part 2. In the next episode, we'll shift focus to a more linear level and explore how the game uses things like leading lines, composition, lighting, and framing to guide players through exploration. But for now, let's take a closer look at what makes the design of Hillcrest so effective. Let's get started. Alright, so pretty much what I'm going to show you here, guys, is a pre-recorded version of me playing through the Hillcrest level. I'm going to be talking about level design, some of the concepts you can see in this level, and pretty much the intentions of the designers when they were making the level. So, yeah, let's get started. Yeah, as soon as you start the level or pretty much the encounter, uh, you can see that there's many things happening here. But the first thing you're gonna notice, it's pretty much like this huge cloud of smoke coming to the right side right here, and you've been seeing this smoke pretty much from the previous encounter. So you as a player, you have a knowledge already of what this is, and this is pretty much the goal. You know, the player knows that they have to go to that location and that point, and they do it pretty obvious here. And they're playing a lot with lighting and colors because they have like the sky like really saturated here, and they're showing it pretty clearly here for the player. If you compare it to the left side right here, this is kind of like a forest area, which is pretty much the opposite. This is more like a darker, uh, you know, a little bit more less clear, less defined. There are not many cover points, and this is what we call a negative space or a dead zone. There are not a lot of cover points there, and obviously it has some negative space. So you as a player, you're gonna notice this smoke right here to the right side as soon as you start the level. So yeah, let's continue with the video. All right. So many things happen there, and the first thing you're gonna notice here as a player is, or hopefully, you have this enemy that's moving to the window. You can see it right here, and the reason of this is because the designers wanted to show you that pretty much you can go inside the houses, and they want to get your eyes to look at those windows or to look at that location. So they want to tell you the player that hey, you can go inside the house. There's probably like something there. You could probably like, I don't know, find something in that point. So they want to show you the player that you can get inside the house, and they do it pretty well here. They basically added an enemy running, so they get your attention doing that. Another thing you can notice here is that you have an enemy right here to the left patrolling, and he has a dog. And if I'm not mistaken, this is like the second encounter you see a dog, or you can encounter a dog. Uh, this is a thread you're as a player you haven't like mastered. This is more like a kind of like an introduction still, because the first encounter doesn't last a long time. So this is kind of like an introduction to the dogs. And then there's another enemy that's patrolling here to the left, but you don't see it really well because it's behind a tree. But you have those two enemies there. So the reason of this is because they want to push you to the right. You as a player, you have two enemies that are patrolling on the left side right here, and you wouldn't want to go there again because there are not many cover points. This is really darker. You don't have a clear visibility of that area, and you have two enemies that are patrolling pretty much there. This is enemy territory. So you as a player will want to go more to the right, or the obvious is that you want to go to the right if you want to be safer. Obviously, it depends on the type of players, but most of the players will want to go to the right. So yeah. All right. So this area right here, this is really important, and I wanted to start the video here, because I'm gonna be talking about the cover points. So we do have two types of concepts when we talk about cover, and we do have the high covers and low covers. And we have both examples right here. So if you can see here, we have the fences, which serves as low cover points. Also, the cars. The cars are also low points. And if we talk about high cover points, we have this wall, maybe inside the house, like inside this window, uh, maybe inside this garage right here, etc., etc. But right here we have both of the concepts, so it's a lot easier to explain. So when we are comparing both concepts, it's important to know that they both have their pros and cons. So it's good as a designer that you know the difference and you learn how to balance, because you don't want to use many low covers or many high covers. You want to get like a good mix of both. But when we talk about low cover points, they pretty much, they have high occluded movement, which means that you can pretty much like hide behind the car and then I don't know, move to this fence right here, and then you can probably like run to this fence right here and then hide inside the house. So pretty much just like fast movement. You can also vault over them. They can be vaulted over. They're vulnerable from elevated positions, which is not good. If you have an enemy on a second floor, they're probably going to spot you and they're going to shoot you. So you're pretty much vulnerable from elevated positions. You're also more vulnerable when aiming. There are not a good option when you want to camp and aim, because they're going to shoot at you and you're going to get hit. Uh, Also, the shapes is easily readable. You can notice that it has easy shapes. Most of the low covers here are pretty much easy to see from far away. So that's a good thing. And also, you can plan ahead. You can make your plan. You can pretty much scout the whole battlefield and make your strategy when you're basically uh, in this encounter, for example. Now, when we talk about high cover points, it's good to know that you have the opposite, which is a slow occluded movement. When you're inside a house, you pretty much have to stop there, think for a second where you want to go, explore the house, and understand the layout you're in. You don't have a lot of options. Just you have to stay there for a bit and plan your strategy. Also, it incentivizes aggressive gameplay because you feel a lot safer inside the house. It incentivizes aggressive gameplay. You can camp over there, basically restock your ammo and eliminate the enemies while camping inside a house, for example. You're also protected from elevated positions, just the opposite that I mentioned before. While you're inside the house, you don't have like this second floor building, and you don't have any enemies shooting at you from above. So you're pretty much safe from high ground, pretty much. So that's a good thing. And yeah, you're also like you have a reduced battlefield. You don't have a lot of visibility, and you're not able to move properly because you're pretty much in an enclosed space, which are the houses. So again, they both have their pros and cons. It's good to have the balance between them and understand them so you can apply them correctly while you're making your level designs. So yeah, let's continue with the video. All right, so I'm inside the house right here. And yeah, so this is really cool here because they're pretty much showing you that you have the option to jump down this floor. So this is verticality. Something that I love about Naughty Dog in general is that their levels are not flat. That they know how to balance verticality. All their levels have verticality and ways for you as a player to traverse them and basically have variation, which is which is really cool. Like it's great as a level designer. You don't want to make your level flat. You want to give options to the player to pretty much incentivize you to explore, to move, or pretty much during an encounter, you want to have options. What we call agency. So right here you have this gap. So you as a player, you have the option to jump down, but you don't know what's below. You don't know what's down there. So it's probably like a you're risking yourself. You're exposing yourself to jump down and maybe find an enemy. You don't know, but they're giving you the option as a player to do it. So that's pretty cool. Giving the option to the player to decide, pretty much. So you could also like go down the stairs, which again they're giving you options to explore. And here I noticed that the enemy is coming at me, so I decided to go upstairs. And then I noticed that there's a an enemy with a dog right here. So
I heard something. We'll look into
I'm
it.
thinking about my strategy, like I mentioned before, just to keep pushing forward. And also, this is a good place to talk about what we know about loop. The loop concept, and pretty much when you're making like encounters, again, you want to add some cover points and stuff. You want the enemy to move towards the player. Just like they're doing right now, they're searching for me. So you want the enemies to move towards the player to look for the players, and then you want the player to escape, and then you repeat that loop. So if by any chance they spot me, they're gonna push me. They want to push and basically kill me. And me as a player, I want to go and hide, and pretty much I'm gonna be repeating that loop. So you want to incentivize that loop, for the player to hide, enemies to go and search for the player, and then the player again escapes and go over and over again. So the loop concept, it's a good concept, obviously, and a strategy for you to think about when you're making your level designs or when you're making like encounters like this. Pretty much, you always want to encourage player movement. That's really important. And here I notice that we have an enemy here camping, and I decide to ignore him and just continue. And again, there's a lot of low cover points here that I'm pretty much using. Again, right here. So we have multiple ways for the player to traverse this house, and I love this. They're giving me options as a player to pretty much traverse the environment and just move around. So if I was spotted here, I would have more options to escape. And it doesn't matter the option you take here; they're both gonna get you to the same place. It's just giving options to the player. Yeah, so I noticed there's an enemy there, and I'm gonna take him down. And again, the loop concept is really important. You want to incentivize player movement at all times. And right over here, I'm pretty much thinking this enemy because I want to scout the battlefield below and just look for options for me to move. As you can see here, I had the options before to pretty much like just go down here by instead of just going to the left in the house behind me, I could have just walked past here and just hide behind this containers and just continue with the level, and I could have just hide behind this trash can and pretty much continue with the level. But I decided to go here to the second floor because I have uh, the high ground, which gives me a lot more of an advantage compared to the enemies. And yeah, this is the low cover points, like I mentioned before, which it gives me the option to basically like scout the environment, and it can be bolted and it has high occluded movement. But I feel like I'm a little bit more exposed, and there's also like a lot of enemies here patrolling, so I prefer to go more into the high ground and be safer. And something that I would have made different if I had the option to make this level is that I would have liked basically to have the same building I'm at right now, and there's like a building right over here. I would have liked I would have made like both buildings a little bit more closer or close together, and maybe have like a platform or maybe like planks or something that pretty much connects both buildings. And the reason of this is because I want to provide a way for the player to basically connect to this other building and continue the level through there. Continue exploration through there. Right now, I'm pretty much not forced, but the option I have here is just to jump down, and that can get me spotted. And again, the other option I have here is to basically go to the right side, like I mentioned before. But once that I'm here in the second floor, I don't have many options available. So I feel like I can get spotted really easily. So something that I would have made different. It's pretty much that I would have added like a plank here or something that connects both buildings, and I can pretty much like get inside this building right here on the second floor, and maybe there's like a window, and I can pretty much get on the second floor and eliminate some enemies there, and just continue to the left right here, which is like pretty much the objective. So that's something I would have make different here, just to give more traversal and more options to the player at this time, in this moment of the encounter. So yeah, let's continue with the level. We do have an enemy right there. He's pretty much patrolling, and yeah, like I mentioned before, there's no ladder here. There's pretty much anything. So my only option is just to jump down, and yeah, if I didn't spot that enemy, I would have been spotted. Um, but again, that's the good thing about this level design, or just in general. Like Naughty Dog provides all these strategies, all these traversals and options that you as a player at the end have the option. You just gotta, make a strategy and think about like the best routes for you to be safe. All right. So yeah, this area right here, I really love this part of the level because as you can see here, we're starting to see the big smoke cloud. It's a little bit hidden, but they're using a lot of framing and composition to pretty much like guide you to the goal here. They're using like this tree and this other tree right here to pretty much guide you here to the smoke. Again, it's a little bit hidden because of this tree right here to the left, but you can still see it. There's not like a wall there or anything. It's just like it's a little bit hidden, but you can still see the objective. So they're using a lot of the leading lines and the environment to guide your eyes to that objective. And I really love that. When they don't force you to you know to go there. They're pretty much showing you with the environment like where you have to go. And yeah, we have this environment right here, and this section, uh it's a little bit complicated for me. When I played it, I remember there are not many options to hide. So again, a lot of risk and rewards. If we would have gone to the right side instead, like before, like for example, if you go back right here, if we could have gone like through here, pretty much inside the house, you get inside the house, there's like a gate that pretty much doesn't let you go in if you go to the right, but you have the option to go inside the house, and there's a few enemies inside the house, so it's a little bit risky. But if I would have gone in through there, then when I get here, my option to get to this garage, which is pretty much like the location I have to go, was only by going like pretty much through this window or behind here to this area right here to the right. And I think there's a door right here. So yeah, like two or three options just to go to this house. But again, there are not many options to hide. You only have like this gazebo here in the middle, and I think there's like an enemy that's camping here, and you also have like this enemy, uh, which apparently I think he knows that I'm here, and you have this enemy right here that has a dog. So they're pretty much patrolling, and it's a little bit complicated. If I would have chosen the right side, I would have had a lot more difficulties for me to escape this encounter. However, I decided to go to the left, and now I have two options to go inside this garage, which is by going through the door, and or going behind this car through this door right here. So risk and reward. You wanna provide the player options for them to take a decision, make a decision. You always want to give the player options, agency. That's really important when you're making your levels. So I decided to go to the left instead. And now, there's an enemy that's waiting for me here, in the left side. But again, you have a low cover point here, which is makes it pretty easy for me to hide. Like I mentioned, quick occluded movement. Pretty much, you can just hide over here and just push forward. Nothing else. Now here you have this area right here, this slope, that pretty much doesn't let you go back. And this is what we call a valve. So valves are really important in level design. There are multiple reasons that we use them in the level designs, but two of the reasons is, one, we want to use it to push the narrative forward because you don't want to let players to go back to the beginning of the encounters. You want to keep pushing them forward so they can get to the objective and the goal. So that's one of the reasons. And then the second one we use valves, it's because we want to save performance. It's more like for memory stuff. You don't want to have the previous section loaded with all the enemies, all the nav mesh, all the scripting. You don't want to have those areas loaded at the same time. So you keep unloaded areas. And how do you do that? Well, pretty much you make a bulb, the player is not able to go back, and you pretty much unload the previous section. So that's pretty much the importance of bulbs. And you can see here, uh, there are actually no enemies there, and yeah, you have like this slope again. So you have a bulb over there. Now we have some enemies spawning to the right. Yeah, we have enemies also to the left. So they're pretty much funneling the player to the middle section. They already know you're there, so they're not patrolling. I mean, kind of like, yeah, they are patrolling, but they don't have a like a specific route. They're a little bit more like searching. They're alerted, and it's a little bit different compared like if they were like patrolling, like a regular enemy. So they're following the player to the middle section. And this right here, I love this composition. Again, this is framing and composition by using leading lines. You're guiding the player through the to the goal. And I will say this smoke is pretty much the landmark because this is the objective. The smoke is a landmark. So they're using pretty much framing composition. They have this window. I love that they have this broken set piece right here with all the trees and pretty much the smoke. It's really clear and visible here. There are no trees blocking your view. So they're pretty much guiding you to the objective, and I love it. I love the way they do it here. And yeah, you as a player, you pretty much jump down and continue pushing forward. Again, more enemies. And this is what we call actually enemy territory. So enemies right over here are pretty much patrolling, or they could be camping. You don't know what they're actually doing. But an enemy territory, it's what the name says. It's a place where the enemies are going to be located. We also have what we call a player territory, and this is pretty much like the section that we started the level. That pretty much you were safe. You had multiple cover options. You had the ability to pretty much scout the location, the level, and pretty much make a decision to keep pushing forward. So this is the enemy territory right now. I'm in danger right now. And again, more enemies to the right. Uh, yeah, they're basically pretty much incentivizing me for exploring, giving me ammo, and giving me some resources just for me to keep pushing forward. There's like an enemy there, but he doesn't spot us. And again, yeah, you have same thing, framing and composition. You have the smoke and you have the window. Excellent technique right here. And now we have an enemy. We have a dog here. Yeah, this dog. I think the dog is not able to just go out. He's just gonna be here, just barking. Nothing else happens. And yeah, I don't know if there's an enemy that's also spawns there. I don't think so. But what they're doing here, it's pretty much they're funneling the player again to this house right here, to this location. They want to keep pushing me to keep moving forward, and the dog works as a tension. The dog the fact that the dog is there, it's causing me tension, and I want to just get out of here and run and escape pretty much. So they're forcing me to go inside this house. And now that I'm here, I just jumped and made a bolt over there, and this is more like a bolt again. I'm not able to go back, and this is actually like an ambush of from the enemies. I'm in an ambush place right here. So another concept that happens here, it's what we call backboards, and pretty much backboards are like the constraints or the edges of the map. I'm not able pretty much to go back. There are no enemies that are going to appear behind me, so I'm pretty much safe in this area. And this determines the edge of the level or the encounters. The enemies are not able to flank me, and this is good for me. If I stay here, I could probably like plan my attack and basically make some resources instead of just pushing them forward and eliminating them and risking myself. I could stay here for a while. And what makes it something that if the player stays here and decides to camp, something that could maybe push me to go out here and basically keep pushing forward is what we call like spiky ball enemies. And an example of this is, for example, they use it in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3. the huge juggernaut enemies. These enemies are what we call spiky balls, and spiky balls are like this type of enemies that are stronger, have has a lot of health, and you're not able to kill them that easily. So they're there to push you out of the camping. You know, they don't want you to camp, so they're pushing you out, and they want you to keep moving and pushing forward. And the dogs here also serves kind of like a spiky ball because they don't let you camp. You know, as soon as you stay there on one place for a bit, they're gonna push you out of that location. So yeah, again, we have a small space here. Not many options for me to hide here. Yep, pretty much. They got me there. So I just have to react, and as soon as possible, I had to move there from there and basically pretty much attack the enemies. So yeah, we see again low cover points, really important, and they have a mix of, we have a high cover right here. I could hide behind this wall. We also have a high cover point right here, and they do have a low cover point right here. So they have a mix of a lot of covers right here. Low cover point, like I mentioned before. And again, another thing you could do to push the player or make the player get out of covers is by pretty much making breakable cover points. So I don't know. What if this cover point right here, this wall? What if the enemies throw grenades or shoot at them and destroy that wall? Then I wouldn't have any cover points, so I would have to move. And that's something you could do to make the player or push the player out of cover. For them to keep moving and pushing forward. So breakable cover points are a good way to make the player not camp or keep pushing, and also exploding barrels. If you make some barrels that the enemies can throw grenades to explode them, that's another way. And sooner or later, the player is going to run out of ammo, so they're going to have to head out of their camping spot and move. So how do you make this, and how do you make them feel rewarded? Well, maybe you add some ammo or some resources out there for them to explore, like I did there. Right over here, we have a scripted event. You see that the closer I'm to the goal, the more intense this gets. The more the music starts increasing. There's like a crescendo. Uh, More enemies are appearing. You can hear like dogs in the background. There's like a car that's gonna come now in a few seconds. Uh, yeah, a lot of things are happening here. And again, once you get to this area, this is pretty much linear. You don't have like a door here. You don't have like stairs. You don't have anything else. You only are able to push forward. This is really linear. And the space right here, it's a little bit more enclosed. Uh, you don't have many cover points. You don't have a lot of flexibility here. You're pretty much forced to keep pushing forward. And we also have the car, like I mentioned right here. Enemies just the enemies just got here. The car just parked over there, and at this point of the level, you're pretty much like high on adrenaline, and you just want to keep pushing forward. And even if I stay here for a bit, nothing's gonna happen. But the fact that their enemies are there, the music and all that stuff, pretty much like pushes the player to keep moving forward. Again, yep. And right over here, as you notice, we have like this window right here, and I would have imagined that I was probably able to climb or like vault that window. However, I'm not able to do it because they clearly stated here that this window it's pretty much unreachable. Like I'm not able to do it. And how do they do this? They created like this language here in this window that they have like this woods. Um, but pretty much it's obvious. They're providing the player uh like the visibility. They're making it obvious that you're not able to basically jump there by providing like woods, planks. They're blocking my path. So when you're making objects like that, maybe you have a door and you don't want the player to interact with the door. uh what I will suggest is create a language to show the player that they're not able to basically use the door or interact with that item, because you don't want the player to be frustrated by interacting with something. And they did it really well here. They have a window, but however, they're using some some of the background stuff to pretty much block my path. And they created this language here pretty obvious for the player. So that's a really good technique, and you should always do that in your level designs when you don't want the player to basically interact with something. And you should make it consistent. You don't want to make something for one level and then change that action in the other level. You want to make it consistent through all your levels, just so the player gets reminded and they understand it through the entire game pretty much. And yeah, once I get here, you can see this pretty much the smoke is more than obvious. Now it's really big and it's darker, and you have like this window, and yeah, the objective is right in front of me, and all I have to do now is interact with this window, do a bolt, and that's it. I'll be at the objective. And something that I love about this type of actions, I imagine that a cinematic is going to happen after this, but as you can see, they're not forcing me to basically go to the objective. You know, I have all the freedom in the world. I can stay here for hours and nothing's gonna happen until I interact with this corner or this window. So Naughty Dog tends to pretty much provide that agency to the player. The player, it's the one that pretty much starts the cinematic, or they start the encounter, or they start the action. You have all the agency of the world. They're not forcing you to do anything here. They're providing you agency, and that's something that I love because they're not forcing me to do anything. So yeah, whenever you feel ready, you can just do the bolt and basically interact with this window, and yeah, just go to the objective. And that's what I do here. Yeah, that's pretty much the encounter. This is the Hillcrest level, which I really love. It's one of the best encounters, in my opinion, in the entire game. I really love this encounter, and I just wanted to, take a second, analyze it, talk about level design, some of the concepts that the designers implemented here, because every tiny detail has a reason. They don't add anything here just because. So everything here has a reason. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video, because I'm gonna make a series of this, and the next video I wanna upload, it's about level design, but more like linear and exploration designs, talking about The Last of Us Part 2 and how Naughty Dog implements some of the concepts there. So make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.